navigating the Wrike space. So the first part will go through a demonstration of the platform, and we will leave about 15 minutes at the end to talk through any questions or review anything that we've gone through in the training. The first thing that I want to highlight to you, as you'll see my page is open on the Wrike Help Center, this is your friend. Bookmark this in your browser. There are lots of really great tutorials in this space, so either step-by-step instructions or video tutorials that you can find. You will also find a really great community where you can ask questions or review other people's use cases for how they're utilizing Wrike in their company. The second thing I want to highlight to you is what we call Wrike Labs. So you can access this by going to wrike.com/labs, and this is where we preview all of our either functionality that we're trying out or stuff that you can add to your particular Wrike account to personalize your experience. So there are lots of nifty things that you can just come here and enable, and it will apply to your particular experience of Wrike, so not to everyone. So a really great example is these Wrike party themes. So maybe some of you might like the retro safari or the legendary leopard print, but not everybody is into that. So you can come into this space and check this off, and it will be applied to your account specifically. So those are the two things for you to bookmark and to play around in as you start out in your Wrike journey. Just a quick thing as well, this call is recorded, so if there is anything that goes over your head or anything that you want to review, Peter will have the recording and he can share that with you and you can use that. So in order to function really well in Wrike, so you know that Wrike is a project management platform. What you want to be able to do is to access all of the information that people are trying to share with you and all of the tasks that are associated with you. So the first place we'll start in terms of looking at our workspace today is at your profile. So we want to make sure that you are getting all of your notifications inside of Wrike as well as into your email inbox. So you can access your profile by clicking the drop-down arrow over there and hitting View Profile. It will take you to the space when you click on Email tabs, so don't mind all the other accounts I have floating around there. This is a really important thing for you to take a look at. Essentially, this defines what notifications will come into your inbox or not. So you don't want to be in a scenario where you have all of these checked off. Otherwise, you are literally getting hundreds and hundreds of emails per day about every single little thing that's happening inside of Wrike. What you want to do is to make sure that you're getting information about what is most pertinent to you. So what is happening inside of Wrike that's associated with you. So in this first kind of tab, you'll see that having checked off someone @mentions me, so if they use your name directly, someone assigns a task to you, so they want you to do something, or when a date, assigning, or status has changed, so those are key parameters around a task, or when someone comments without @mentioning me or my group, but it's with a task that I'm already involved in. And that's generally, I find, more than enough to keep you up to date with what's going on inside of Wrike. So all of this is outlined in your standard operating procedures for Wrike. So you can go to the space and change how this is set up and make sure that you're getting those notifications coming into your inbox. So let's dive into your workspace. And let's take a look at what's happening inside of Wrike. So I know that there are a lot of different moving parts here. So I want to talk a little bit about how we build and represent work inside of Wrike. So we have three key units that we use inside of Wrike. We call them projects, folders, and tasks. So we can create all of those three units, either here at the top of your account. So if you click on that plus button over there, it gives you the option to create something. Or if you use this omnipresent plus over there, and this is visible anywhere you are inside of Wrike, if you click on there, it'll ask you what you'd like to create. So our folders and our projects we can create from this view, and essentially our folders and our projects are really units for us to group similar kinds of work together. So think of them like you would your folders on your computer. So you have My Documents, downloads, stuff like that on your computer, and in there you have similar types of work. So your folders and your projects are exactly like that. The only key difference is that your projects inside of Wrike have a defined start date that you can populate and a defined end date. You can also allocate things like a project owner. So I'm going to create a test one for us to work in. for our time together. So you'll see that I've put a prefix there in front of that name that I'm giving the folder, and that's because everything in Wrike is ordered alphanumerically. So I want this to come up to show up at the top of all the folders and projects that I have. You'll also see that I have the option to say who has access to this. The default is going to be that the information or the folders, projects, tasks that you create will always be private until you share them with someone. Once you've created or shared that information with someone, anything that you put in that space will be accessible to whoever you shared that with. So I'm going to keep that private, and then I can show you some of the other things that we can do. So I've created a folder over there. So we've discussed those top two units, so folders and projects. The next most basic unit that we have is our task, and that is our action item. So what is it that you're wanting to do inside of Wrike? So let's say I want to review reports. So that's our task that we've created. So I'm going to collapse this left-hand panel so we can focus in there. Let's make this a little bit smaller. There we go. So you'll see that I can look at the detail of a task on our right-hand pane over there. So this is our task over here. You'll see on this top bar, you're able to identify what folder or project a task is associated with. What we're then able to do is to begin to add some detail to our tasks. So we can add things like who is going to be responsible for this. So say I am the person who is responsible for taking a look at these reports. So I've assigned that to myself. So I can change that. So I can remove myself from that report, from that task, or I can add multiple people to this. Our best practice is generally one task, one person, but we are really aware that, you know, there are scenarios where it's not possible to just have a single person working on a task. So you're welcome to add additional people. As a suggestion or an alternative representation, if you feel that, hey, this task actually has 3 or 4 steps and I want different people to be working on those steps, you can include what we describe as a subtask. So you just add that by clicking over there, and we would say review previous quarter reports. There we go. And my spelling is not great today. There we go. So I've created a subtask over there, and what this allows me to do is then assign it to someone else. So let's add Peter over there. So Peter will review that, and I can set up a specific due date for this. So let's say my overall task is due on the 21st. I can set up a separate due date for any of these subtasks. Let's say I want that done on the 16th, and I can continue with setting up different kinds of tasks that have different due dates and different assignees in this space. If you would like to do something that's a little bit simpler, so say you just want to have kind of a checklist to remind yourself and say, okay, these are the 3 or 4 things that I need to be able to do to review these reports, you can set that up as a checklist inside your task. So that doesn't have any assignees or any due dates. It's literally just a checklist. So let's take a look at it that way. And then you can just come along and check those off as you go through the task. You are also then able to obviously add any comments or notes in here for someone who's working on the task. You're able to attach any images in there, and you'll see, like I did earlier, you're able to add a due date. The next big thing, so I know that I'm going through 5 or 6 things altogether, but we'll take a little bit of a pause and take some questions once I've finished the communication piece. The next thing to really be aware of as we're interacting around a task or across Wrike is that we can include people in how we're working. So the idea is that we want to collaborate and we want to bring people into the work that we're doing. So the first way that we can do that is by adding multiple assignees to tasks. So over there, I've added Peter as an assignee to this task. But say there are other people that I want to be able to take a look at this task, or say, for example, get updates on this task, I can add them as followers. So currently I'm the only person who will get updates on this task, but let's say I would like Ken to get detailed updates on what's happening over there. So Ken will now receive notifications and say, hey, this is what Cheng has done, this is what Peter's done associated with the task. Another way that we can bring people into the task and essentially just give them access is by sharing the task with them. So say I just want someone to be able to see what's happening and not necessarily, get detailed updates, but I want them to be able to take a look at this task. I can just add them. So Allison, your name is first, so I'm going to pick you. So now Allison has access to this task. So Allison won't get detailed updates, but can come and take a look at what's happening over here. Now, a really helpful way for us to continue our interaction around all of these tasks is by commenting. So you'll see when I was talking about the notifications that we can set up, I use the term @mentioning. So inside of Wrike, in the comments section, you can @mention either individuals or groups of people if you want to communicate with them directly. So say, for example, I want to, Peter, remind me the name of that group that we talked about. I think it starts with a C.
Consumer floor.
Sorry?
Consumer floor.
Consumer floor. Okay, there we go. So say I want to include the consumer indoor floor group to this particular task and have them in this conversation. I can mention all of them in one go because there is a user group. So you can create multiple user groups and use that as a means to communicate. So through the comments or share information with them or add those groups as followers. So over there, I'm going to say, please, could we have a meeting?
Hey, Chenge?
Yes.
Yeah, a big group here, and I know, like myself, not everyone is very social media savvy. So,
okay.
Just some people in here haven't heard of what @mentioning is. My kids would laugh if I said it out loud. But it means when you put the @ sign and put someone's name or a group, they're all going to be notified. So you're just tagging them, basically. You've heard that phrase. You're just tagging them so that communication is going directly to their inbox if they have it set up right. But it's also going to be in their communication under Wrike. So there's multiple ways to get it. So you're just basically tagging them so they get communicated. Either an individual or a user group, like this example.
Yep, that's exactly.
No worries, that's perfect.
We have some people here who used to work here before computers. So.
Okay, so again, I want to reiterate that there are lots of tutorial videos that you can use. So this video will be available and you can go to the tutorial videos and you'll see that in here on the bottom left corner, there's a little icon here that you can click on where you can access tutorial videos inside of Wrike. So if some of this misses you, don't worry. You'll have lots of opportunities to review all of this. So there we go. So we've used that @mentioning functionality, right? So we've tagged this group specifically. Now, what's really great about this conversation piece, so I can make a comment, someone can respond to this, and we can go back and forth. But as we're having this back and forth conversation, what can happen is I might see a comment that's been made maybe a couple of days ago, and I want to specifically respond to that. What I can do is I can come and take a look at this comment and I can highlight it like that. And you'll see on the left, there is quote marks that appear. I can click on the quote marks and that allows me to make my response directly at that specific comment. And let's say maybe at 10 on Tuesday. There we go. And for those of you that are into emojis, there are lots of options for you to further punctuate your comments or whatever it is, and you can make use of those.
No stopping Chuck now.
Okay, so as we're doing this, sorry?
We want to know if there are animated emojis. We've created a monster now.
Oh no, not yet, but that's a really good suggestion. I think maybe we're just wanting people to not go too crazy yet. Maybe they'll come in our release next year. Okay, so once we've kind of gone into this back and forth commenting rhythm, what you'll see is the way that our comments or our updates work is that they happen every 6 minutes, specifically with our comments. So say, for example, I realize that, hey, I make a comment over here. So no, I don't want to come to your dumb meeting. Okay, so I've made that comment and that's a little bit crazy. because why would I say that? So I've made this comment and I realized, oh my goodness, I have made this comment. That's a terrible thing to say. You have 6 minutes to change your mind and come to your senses. Within that 6-minute period, I can edit this comment and change this and say, yay, I love meetings. There you go. And it's like that comment was never there. Or if I decide actually saying anything altogether is not necessary, I can just delete that and it's like it was never there. So that is a great note for you to just be aware of as you're making those comments. So I want to pause because we have gone through quite a few different pieces. So we've talked through your profile, we've talked through what projects, folders, and tasks are, some of the basic tenets of our tasks, and how we communicate by following, sharing, and commenting inside of Wrike. Are there any questions around any of those pieces?
There may be, but before they do, I just want to let people know we're also going to cover, we created some templates, at least one template that mirrored the A3. So if you're a project manager, you'll be able to see that template, copy it into a project folder for yourself, and then go in with your team and adjust the timing. So we'll cover that. That's coming. We're also going to cover the user groups, which Chenga just showed us. We'll talk about some of the reporting functionality. We can get updates. But this was a really good overview of how you're going to communicate within Wrike. Does anybody have any questions for Chenga? No, but they are eager to start using it, I can tell. Okay, so we keep moving.
Okay, great. So we've talked about how we create some basic work inside of Wrike. So I want to talk through how we then view our work inside of Wrike. So I'll talk through these top level views, and let's start with our inbox. So our inbox is where you will receive push notifications when someone has commented. So mentioned you directly, so they've used your name. When someone has shared something with you, when someone has tasked you to do something, you will find all of that in your Wrike inbox. You'll see that when I hover over any of these notifications, there are these icons that pop up. I'm able to do a few things with these notifications. So say this is a comment that Peter made and I want to come back to this. I can snooze this and say, tomorrow at 8, I will come back and take a look at that. If I take a look at this and I realize that, hey, actually, this isn't something that's important, I can archive that, and that moves that out of my immediate view. And I can continue to do that with any of, the notifications that are in the space, and just making it a little bit more accessible and easier for me to navigate the space. All of the notifications that come into the space will live in your inbox for a period of a month. After a month, they are automatically deleted by the system. And that's essentially your inbox inside of Wrike. Any questions or comments around the inbox?
There's one question.
Just can I solve your email? Do you have to specifically come into Wrike to see your inbox?
Yeah. It's really, I'm going to repeat it so I'm closer to the phone. So the question was, is this specifically connected to your email, or do you have to come into Wrike to get these notices?
So so this exists independently of your email. So this is just your notifications inside of Wrike. If you are wanting these notifications or your notifications about stuff that's happening inside of Wrike to come into your email inbox, you would set that up in your profile over here, and you'd come and check off whatever specifically you're wanting to get, and that would push that through into your email inbox.
So the answer is, it's up to you. If you set your profile up that way, that's how you'll get it.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, you said that the emails will go away after a month?
So these notifications in this space, so in Wrike only, will go away after a month. The ones in your email will not be deleted. They will stay there as long as you want to keep them there.
And if it's a task that came in through there, the task can still be open more than a month. It's just the initial notification of that task can disappear. Right?
Yes. Yeah. So think about it as, so this is literally just a notification center.
FYI, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great. So the next space I want to talk through is the My Work view. If you are trying to kind of figure out where should I be landing, where should I be going to find my work, or what it is that I need to be focusing in on inside of Wrike, your My Work view, which is not loading, is where you need to do that. That is weird that it's not loading. Okay, can you just give me a second? Let me refresh that. Sorry about that. I'm not,
Yeah, help her out.
Okay, I am going to move on to another view, and then we can circle back to the My Work view. It just seems to be loading only. Okay, so what I would like to talk through next is a more kind of I suppose a diverse view where we can see lots of different pieces of work, and we call that our dashboard view. Now, your My Work view contains work that is associated with just you, so you won't see other work there. Your dashboard view allows you to diversify what you see. So you have a default dashboard that you'll find located there, and you can populate it using these filters. So right next to your name, you can click on this icon, and you'll see there are these default options that you have to populate your dashboard. So I can check off either stuff that I need to get done today, stuff that's been happening inside of our account, and any of these other ones that I want to see. And I can use the space as a way to interact with different pieces of work. So this is specifically associated with me, but I can create dashboards for basically anything that's inside of Wrike. So I'm going to show you how you can create a dashboard. So if, say, we are working on something collectively as a team, let's say team active tasks, and we want to see what is everybody working on. We can create a dashboard for that, and I find that's a really popular way for us to use our Wrike account. What we can do is over here, click on Create Widget, and you'll see that we have some canned options of how we can populate this new dashboard that we've created. So let's say we want to take a look at active tasks by assigning. So I want to see what specific people are working on. So let's do that. So I would have to change my account. There we go. And then I can filter out by specific people or by specific user groups. So let's say, so Peter and Ken, I'm going to pick on you a lot today. So I want to see what Peter is working on inside of Wrike. That's it. So I'm going to save that, and then that will populate over there. So this is everything that's assigned to Peter inside of Wrike. So I can build out a dashboard like this for everyone in your specific teams, everyone who is working on a specific project. If you're a manager and you just want to get perspective around what people are working on, this is a really great way to do it. What you can also do is create a dashboard that allows you to maybe manage specific things. So if you want to see what's overdue in a particular week, we can do that. So let's call this overdue. And then we would pick out our account there. So what's important to note is that you can either pick from specific folders, or you can filter out from across your account. So I can pick a specific folder in our account, or for our example, I'm just going to pick from everything because that gives us a little bit more data. And then you'll see that I have filter options on the right over here. So I can either say, okay, I want to see what's active. And then I also want to see what's overdue specifically. And I can check that off, and then I'll hit save. And there we go. That is everything that's overdue in our account, but that has an active status, and that's assigned to everyone. So these dashboards are a great way for us to say, are there specific things that we want to focus in on? Are there things that we want to track either for our team or that are associated with time periods, and then create this. So once we've created our dashboards, these will remain here until we delete them. And what's great is if you create one for your team or specific kind of project, you can then share them with specific people. So I can add, what is the name of that group again? Consumer, there we go. Consumer Indoor Floor. There we go. So I've shared it with that group, and they have access to this. So you can use this as a way to run your meetings and say, okay, we're all looking at our overdue tasks, or what has happened this week, and we can create lots of different kind of widgets to populate our dashboard. Any questions around?
Yeah. Yes. Cheng, I have one. So
Okay.
you're seeing a lot of tasks that are open from the templates we created. So if I wanted to create a widget just for a specific project, how would we do that? You didn't get all the noise that I'm seeing on the screen.
Okay, so we would just go to create widget, and we'd create a custom one. So we would name it, and let's just call that active. And then we pick our folder over here. And what we would do to get from a particular project is we would just select the specific folder. So I know that there's one that we were working on. Can you remind me of that name? There we go. That one.
That's it.
There we go. So maybe, so all those tasks, there we go.
Yep. And
there
these
we
are
go.
just, we haven't really set these dates yet. That's just what we have for the, that's perfect. That helps
Okay.
answer my question.
So maybe,
yeah, I have one.
Hang on, one more.
Can you, you had the overdue ones. Is there something that you can do regarding like things that are due within X number of days or X number of weeks, or, so it's always keeping current, but it's everything that's coming up in the next 2 weeks that's due?
so with the kind of time parameter ones, you would be able to say, let's take a look at what is happening this month, for example. So you can see there we have overdue, so maybe not this month, or 7 days ahead. So you can pick all of those options and that will auto-populate over there. The only problem with this is that we've chosen the overdue filter as well. So the overdue filter, the way that the perspective that it gives is that anything that's overdue. So it won't just say, okay, this is only 7 days overdue. So what I would suggest for that kind of scenario is to set a time parameter. So I would use a 7 days ahead or this last week or something like that for us to track those kinds of pieces of information. And then we would just save, and there you go.
And this is a dashboard that somebody can create on their own account, but we're also going to show, there's a way to create reports, which will be a standard report that people can subscribe to, and that can come out every week or once a month. And I think you're going to get to that, right, Chenge?
Yes, that is the next one. Are there any other questions around the dashboard before we move on to the reports?
No, everybody's quiet.
Okay, sure. So let's take a look at our reports. Our reports have, so they're very similar to the dashboards in the way that we build them, but you'll see once we create one, how the representation is different. So we have these standard ones that you can run, but I will show us how to create a particular one. So we're going to call this active projects. So we would just name our reports. And there are two kinds of reports, three kinds of reports that we can run. We can either run a project report, and that's really on your top level. So what are, when did the project start? Are there line items associated with the project? So it's a very top level view, none of the granular data. Or we can take a look at a granular kind of view. So what tasks are overdue, what is happening with specific people, or whatever parameters we choose. Or if we're logging time, we can run a report that's specifically associated with the time log that you've created. So let's take a look at maybe a granular one, and then we can do a top level one as well. So we would just, so you wouldn't have to do that step. So let's take a look at, so we want to take a look at this one. So we would just pick where specifically we want to pull that data from. So let's pick maybe that folder altogether. And in the same way as when we were building the dashboards, we can then pick specific parameters and say, hey, this is something specific I want to look at. I want to see what's active, or I want to see what is happening in a particular time period, or I want to see who created specific tasks. So we can just pick out whatever is most helpful for us. And then once we're happy with the parameters we've chosen, we would then choose what kind of representation do we want to see. Do we want to see this in a table view? So that's really similar to Excel. Or do we want to see this in a column view, which is really similar to a bar graph? So let's pick a column view, a table view, because that's a little bit easier for us to navigate as we start out. And then we can save and view, and that's going to give us a lot of information. So you'll see this is essentially just kind of a dump of this information. What we can then do as we create these reports is refine how the data is represented here. So you'll see that these columns that we see over on the top level here, we can add or take away from them. So let's say I don't want to see what status group is associated over here. I don't want to see the duration, and maybe I'm happy with that. So we can add or take away whatever we see appropriate. And then these are not assigned to anyone, so I can actually take that off. And maybe, okay, there we go. So once I'm happy with the columns that are over here, maybe I want to group this work in a particular way. So we have some default ones. So the default one will always be the status group, but let's say I want to look at how long each of the tasks will take. So I group them by either task that will take a day, 2 days, 3 days, etc. So whatever really is a helpful representation for you is what you can use to group this data. So let's maybe change this to parent folder. That might be a better representation. There we go. So now we've grouped this by parent folder. So we're looking at where these tasks are. So once we're happy with the representation that we have, we can then share this with particular people. So A, we can subscribe to this report and say, this is something that I want to see on a regular basis. I can say on a Tuesday at 10, I want to get this report, and I would hit subscribe, and this I would get a notification in my inbox over here to say, hey, your report is ready for you every Tuesday at 10, and I can open up that report. The next thing that we can then do, if we're not subscribing to a report, if we want to give someone access to it, we're able to share it with specific people. So currently my report is private, but again, we are using that group. If I want everybody in this group to be able to take a look at it, I can share it with them, and they would have access to this report, and they can create their own subscription to the report. What I can also do, if there are people who either sit outside of our Wrike account, that need to have visibility over what's active, what's not active, what's happening, I can either export this as an Excel document and share that with them, or I can create a snapshot, which is a static view of what's happening with this report, and send that through to them. So that's essentially how we would build our report, share it, and create a regular subscription to this information. Any questions around that?
I think everybody's okay. They're overwhelmed or happy. And I know some of the reporting, there's a lot of options here. We'll just have to figure out the ones that work best for us, and yeah, we'll get those.
Okay, so I think with the reports especially, there is a process of playing around and saying, what is it that actually would be helpful for me to see? And you know, if once you've got that, you've done it. You're not going to need to come back to here and change it on a daily basis or regular basis at all. All right, so let's take a look at the stream view, then we'll circle back to our My Work view. So our stream view is very similar to your social media kind of representation. So it's a summary of everything that's happened within your account. So you can filter out and say, do I want to see absolutely everything that's happening across the board, or is it specifically stuff that I'm involved in? So I've chosen to take a look at what I'm following, so that those are the updates that I get, or stuff that's assigned to me. So everything I follow is generally, I find a really good middle ground for detailed updates. So some people like to use this view to find out what's going on inside of Wrike. So you can just come and play around here and say, okay, what would be helpful for me to see? What degree of detail do I want? But I find everything I follow is a happy medium. So let's
does everything I follow automatically include everything assigned to you, or you have to click that one separately?
No, so everything I follow is everything that's assigned to you and stuff that you have been added as a follower to. Any other questions around that? Okay.
Nope, we're good.
So let's try and open up our My Work view.
When we switch over to show the folder structure on my account, I'm assuming my work will show up. So if you want to do it that way.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then you can share your screen, and then I will talk through my work on your view.
Okay. Do I share my screen, I guess?
Yes.
my email. You don't need to check that. But I have Wrike open in 2 different browsers. You can choose. I have it here. This probably works. That shows up well. Can you control that, or you need me to do it?
I need you to do it. My option for mouse control isn't there. Okay, there we go. So if you just click on the My Work view.
Can you see it?
Yes, I can. So you'll see the My Work view is really a summary of what it is that you need to get done. So only tasks that Peter is assigned to are represented here. And you'll see that there are 3 portions that exist over here. So there's stuff that's due today. So great, Peter doesn't have anything to do today. And you have that this week, next week, and later portion. What's great about the view that you have in My Work is that you can reprioritize what you see where. So if you can click on that confirm availability for user training in the later view and then drag it to today, there we go. So if you drag it up, there we go. So you can drag it to anywhere really. So if you want to take a look at it in this week or next week, so you can reprioritize where your work is represented. What's important to note is that the work that you see here the due date will not change around these particular tasks. The due date will remain the same. This is about where you are seeing the work so that it's easier for you to navigate as a person as you're aware that, hey, maybe this is something I don't need to get to today, but it's something that I can get to next week, etc. What's also great about this view is that you are able to create tasks for yourself. So you'll see that on the top there, it says new task, and you can create tasks for yourself. So as you're working through stuff, so say we've taken a look at this confirm availability for user training. There, Peter is creating a task. Getting coffee is so important so we can all stay happy. So there we go. That task will always automatically be assigned to you. You'll see on the top level there where the other tasks have a folder or a project associated with them. The tasks that you create in the space don't automatically have that assigned to them. So you would have to add a specific folder or a project for that task to be associated with. And that's essentially the My Work view. What I will do is I will add some additional resources around my work in the summary that I send you after today, and then you can play around with that. But essentially, if you're wanting to say, what are the 2 places I land at when I'm working on Wrike, your My Work and your dashboards are those go-to places. Your My Work gives you your personal work, because only tasks that are active and assigned to you are visible here, and your dashboard gives you a little bit more scope to create a focus area for stuff that is outside of maybe your active work or stuff that's assigned to you, and you can play around with that a little bit more. Okay, so Peter, I'll hand over to you to explain that overall folder structure, and then I'll take over again.
Great. One of the things we learned initially from Chenge, but also from Wrike, is that success is a lot of times determined by how well we set up our folder structure. So we were fortunate because we have, when we run projects here for new product development, we have a pretty good folder structure on the iDrive that works. And if you remember, if I'm correct, it starts with professional and we have one for consumer. So anyone who opens this up, you're going to see under Peter Lepoli's team, which we can change the name of that. These are folders, one called Unger Professional, one called Unger Consumer. Inside of each of those, we have by year, because I think that's the way the iDrive does it. We start with a year. 2017, and then by project number. So we try to keep the same convention. And this is our pilot project, the consumer indoor floor. And inside that folder, that's a folder level. You can see the little star there. Then we created a project. And the project is the actual project with the tasks and the assignees. And then we also created something called meeting notes that I'll probably explain to you in a second. But first, let me go over the project structure. Chenge, is this a good time for me to talk about the templates?
Yes, you can talk about them now. Yeah, that's not a problem.
So Chenge showed you before, if I wanted to create a project from scratch, I could go in here and create a project just like she showed us. But alternatively, we have this A3 document that took a lot of effort. We tried to take that with the 200 or so items or whatever's on there a lot and tried to condense it the best way we could without losing the value of those steps. So we created these under templates One is called Unger project template. That's probably the most frequently used one. That's the full project. And we're creating one where we have some of these projects where our suppliers are helping us, industrial design only. That's a shorter version, but I'll start with the project template. And what you'll see inside of a project, there's all different views, and we'll go through those. But the one I wanted to show you first, because I like this because I'm used to Gantt charts, is a timeline view. So this, everyone know what a Gantt chart is?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yep. So you can see in here, this is really taken from the A3. There's some initial marketing pre-work. Then we have all the tasks required in between TG1 and TG2. We've put them in here. It should explode. There you go. And the same with TG3 and project launch, TG2 and TG3. So if I was the project manager, if I was Hartley getting ready to create this, what we did is we went to the Unger project template and we right-clicked, and it just says duplicate. And you can duplicate it. You name the project. You select a folder where you want it to go. In this case, I'm not going to do it because I already did it. That's how I got it in the space where it is. You create that. You copy tasks. And you get to click this reschedule button, which is great because once I hit that, it said, okay, when are you going to start this thing? And we had our kickoff meeting last week. I don't know, was that Wednesday or Thursday, Hartley? Okay, so that's when I started it. And it just created a copy of our template. And it went in there and said, this project's going to start in November, which was last week. And with our standard lead time, there's been no kickoff meeting here. With our standard lead time, it pushes this to March. The nice thing about this, or not so nice thing about this, is Hartley's got a date of November, the previous year. So now the next meeting, which is Friday, I believe, we have to sit down as a team and say, okay, March doesn't work for us, or maybe it does, and we need to get to November. So we're going to go through each one of these subtasks, assign them to someone, and then say, when do you think you can do it? And then see if we can pull it in. If we can't pull it in, then don't lie to ourselves. The date's going to be March. So the other thing is, as tasks get missed because of scope changes or anything else, that's fine, but the project manager will be the one to go in and show that in the project. And when you move a date, everything's connected. So you also move your launch date. And that's okay, but they forced us to have that decision to say, hey, you really want that new feature because let's talk about it. It's going to cost a little bit more, and now our launch is going to move. And we'll force ourselves to have that conversation, which I don't think we were doing that very well previously. At least I haven't experienced it. Okay, Chenge, I talked a lot. Did I miss anything? You want me to show the other views inside of our?
No, I'm happy. Go ahead. Okay.
I was just going to quickly show the table view because in here, the other task of our project meeting on Friday is who's going to own it. We created an ownership column, which is basically the function. So it'll be marketing or R&D. And then these all get assigned to someone. So someone's going to have the ownership, a name level. So these are very important columns for us. The other thing, before Chuck asked the question, if you go into the list view, at the main project level, you'll see in here we added a tooling spent and tooling budget and an expenses spent and expenses budget. We were able to customize that. So the project manager is responsible for putting that in there. And also as we update, we cut a PO for another tool, go in and update that. So we'll know when we're over. I've seen a couple projects where we were done, we were overspent, and we asked the team, did you know what your budget was? And everyone said, no. What was it? So that shouldn't happen any longer.
Is there any more detail other than that? I mean, can you do line items or something like
yeah.
that?
Go ahead, Chenge. I don't know the answer.
So okay, so can I take over and then I will talk through how we can add those other items.
Do I need to press something?
No, just let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see your screen. Okay,
fantastic. So all of these kind of parameters that are over here are things that you have added as a team. So these aren't pre-existing inside of Wrike. So if there are additional things that you want to add, what we would do is you would go into the table view and you would add them over here. So let's remove some of the ones that we're seeing so we can see some of that. We call it a custom field inside of Wrike, and all you would do is come here and click on add column, create new one. and whatever parameter it is that you want to track. So if it's an additional budget item or an additional piece of information, so say for example, you want to track some notes associated with that, and you would say, okay, how are we going to capture it? We're going to use text, or you can choose any of these options over here. So we'll choose text for our example. And then the two really important things are, where are you applying it? So you're applying it right down to the granular level, so you'll be able to add notes on a task, or is it just a top level kind of line item? So for our example, let's add it just on the top level there. And then who has visibility over this, this custom field that we've created? Is it something that everybody needs to see? Or in some instances, I find that you're tracking something that's a little bit sensitive, so actually only a specific group of people need to see it, or just you as an individual who's creating it needs to see it. So you can either, keep it private, so I would just share that with myself, or I can share it with the rest of the team, and then just save it. And then that's everything. And then you'd be able to view whatever custom field that you've created and apply it to all of the projects that you have. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
I think it did, but it might even be more than we have to do. Alternatively, I think we should show them where we talked about doing the minutes of a project meeting. And I think in the same way we're going to do minutes, we could do a detailed budget task within that project folder where you create a checklist or subtasks that show, okay, maybe a checklist. Say we cut this PO, we cut that PO, because I'm not sure this will actually sum it the way we need to.
Probably not. Or could we attach a spreadsheet?
Spreadsheets can be attached with no problem, right, Chenggen?
Yeah, absolutely. You can attach anything, really. That's the limit to the size is 500 megs. I would be super surprised if you had a budget that was bigger than 500 megs to attach. So you can attach anything really to your task. So in here, what we've done in the way that we've created the project template, you'll see that there is an actual project over here, but you also have the space for meeting notes, and those are things that you are wanting to track. So if you have a specific meeting, you can track that meeting. So over there, you've had this project meeting, and in there you can include notes around the conversation that you've had, action items. And what's great about doing all of this in the project space is that this is already shared with everyone. So everybody who was in that meeting or associated with that project would have access to this already. So you can add your next line items, the next follow-up tasks. All of this is stuff that people will have access to and can come back to as you're going through the project.
That's great. Yeah, I think this is a great way. You gave us the idea to run a meeting in here, and you'll be able to give you the assignments, and you don't have to go back to your desk, retype your notes, and send those emails out. It's all going to be captured within Wrike.
Yeah. So what you can actually do is even create a recurring kind of task. So say that you're running a project for 6 months. I can say weekly meeting over here. So I've created that task, and I can make that a recurring task. Make recurrent. I know that I am going to run these meetings for the next, I don't know, until November June 2018. And that's a weekly task that happens on a Tuesday. And then you can already create the assignees to that task. So again, I'm going to create that group consumer. Hold on, do we have access to that? No, they're not shared on this. So I will just add myself. Let's say, Chuck, I have heard your name a lot in this meeting, so I'm going to add you to that. And then I'm going to add Pisa and Ken. There we go. So all of these people, every time this weekly meeting comes up, all of these people will automatically have access to it. They will have all these notes shared with them. And once we save, what will happen is this task is created over there. So these weekly meetings will run forever or for that set time period that you have. So each week we can come in here and say, okay, what was our first kind of like weekly meeting? What were the updates that we had? And you have this historic kind of data that's associated with that project or with anything else that you're doing. So even if it's not a project, if you're just doing it for your internal kind of departmental meetings, it's just a great way to make sure that all of your information is in the right place. Everybody has access to everything, and you'll see all of the tasks have the right people associated with them, and everyone can access this really easily.
Okay, I just thought of something when we talked about the links, the 500 megabyte attachments. Yep. I think we'll come up with something. I'll send out something with our rules of Wrike for Unger. But I think you should show us how we attach links, because I'm talking to our R&D group here, and if they attach 3D models and things, I think it eventually could bog down our system. So I think our standard operating procedure is going to be send a link to the file, which is somewhere else, and we have our IT expert in here as well. The other thing is, from a rules standpoint, project managers are going to be the ones that are responsible for changing the dates. So I had a question. If I had a task assigned to me and I knew I was going to be late and I wanted to go in there and change the date and didn't tell my project manager, that's not the right way to do business. So I should go through the project manager. But if I did that, Chenge was able to show me it's easy because it's all documented in there. It just says Peter Lipoli moved the date on this date. And the project manager can say, hey, what's going on? We haven't talked about that. So I think it's just easier if we filter all date changes through the project manager.
Yeah, so you'll see over here, I initially created the task and it was scheduled for November 21st. And over here, I just rescheduled it and it says I rescheduled it for November 30th. So there isn't really, outside of these comments that we talked about that you can delete, you can't change anything in the system anonymously. So if you do something and you change it, there is a log that's available for any changes that have happened in this kind of list view as well. So we've taken a look at, making tasks recurrent. Something that I also find helpful is as you're working through stuff, sometimes you need to request an update on a task. So over here, I've assigned this to Peter. And maybe I want to know how this is going. I can just literally click on there and request a status update, and that will send a quick request to Peter and say, hey, Chenge would like to know what's going on with this. So if I send that to him, hopefully Peter will respond once he's gotten that notification to say, hey, Chenge would like an update. So creating a dashboard as well with tasks that are happening this week, or filtering your tasks and saying what's coming up this week allows you to do something like that. And say on a Monday morning, you can send those notifications to people and say, hey, what's the update on these particular tasks? So we've talked through our list view. This is, okay, let's take a look at it with this data rather. There we go. Okay, let's do that. So this is our list view, and this is how our information is represented here. So it's a lot like your to-do list. So you'll see that your data is represented on the left. If you click on a task or anything, it opens up on the right. So the same way as we were interacting with our data previously, and this is generally the default where your tasks will open up into. We've talked a little bit about our table view, and this is really similar to Excel, and you can add or change information over here. In all of the views that you have inside of Wrike, there is a space for you to add additional tasks, or you can always use that omnipresent green plus over there. Peter talked us a little bit through this timeline view. Now, there's a specific thing that I just want to show everybody here in the timeline view. So this is more for your awareness. As you're taking a look at the timeline view, you'll see that there are relationships that have been created between tasks. And essentially, what this allows us to do is say, okay, this task needs to happen before this one can get started. And there's a really simple and easy way for us to create these relationships. So I'm going to delete this one because that's a simple one and it shouldn't mess with your overall structure. Okay, so okay, no, I've just changed that one. So essentially, when you hover over a task, you'll see there's an arrow that appears on the outer limit of a task. And all you do is drag and drop to connect those two tasks. and I've created that relationship between the tasks to say, okay, when this one is done, this one can kick off. And what will happen is whoever is assigned to this task, once they mark it as completed, the second person in line will get a notification to say, hey, everything that needs to happen for you to get started on your task is now completed. You can start working on what it is that you need. And that's a quick way for us to create relationships between tasks. So even for yourself, as you're creating, you're working either in this kind of project format or on your kind of group tasks or whatever it is, this is a great way for you to kind of keep track of handing over information between people. The next, yep.
Sorry, while you're in here, the project manager can also change the duration of these tasks or move them around in this view as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. So you can just kind of...
Is there a way to quickly undo that when you make a mistake? I know we have the 6-minute rule, but how do you do that from this viewpoint?
So from this viewpoint, it's a little bit trickier. So if I am a little bit hesitant about changing this one. So let's do it in my test folder. Over here, let's have that. So the subtask there. So if I change it, generally, if I move something, you have the option to undo, but you actually really need to be aware that this is something that you've done. What also does happen is because, especially with your process you've created, there are a million relationships between all of your tasks, this notification will always show up, because ultimately what will happen is if you move a task, it affects the timeline of everything else. So that you do have, you know, a fair amount of time to say, hey, this this task is being moved around. And as we've mentioned before, if you do move a task, it will be cataloged that you have rescheduled the task or moved it. So there isn't a way to stop you from doing it, but if it does happen, there are those alerts that come up to say, hey, you've done this, is this something that you want to do?
Okay, we have one question in the room, Matt.
Sure.
If you do that to kind of gauge an idea of how it's going to affect everything else, after you commit that, can you then go back? Or once you commit it, you get like is there a way you can move a task in a temp model to see how?
I don't think so. I think you can click that task and see the history, like you just said, and then if you want to just set it back to the day, you can switch over to the table view, and you can see it in the Excel type format and just change the date.
So there's no way to, let's say, lock a timeline and then just have others view it?
So the way we're going to do that at Unger is once you, as a team, commit to the timeline, it's locked. The only way someone's going to go and change it is by having the project manager change that date. But it's not physically locked. You could go in and do it, but we'll go in and see who made the change. Because you'll find out because your launch date's going to change. Because there's so many dependencies, somebody's going to say, hey, wait, why did our launch date change? And then you can go back and see, okay, Peter changed the date on this batch. Okay.
Okay, so let's take a look at our time log view. So let's just log a little bit of time on these tasks over here so we can see. So when we're logging our time, we can do that in real time or retrospectively. So over here, we can press play and you'll see there our timer starts running, or we can log that time retrospectively. So I just want to do 2 entries so that you can see that in our time log view. Okay, so when we take a look at our time log view over here, you'll see that there is data that's been logged there. Now, you're able to export this specifically, or like we talked about in the reports view, you're able to pull reports that are based on this data specifically, but it shows you who's logged the time, what task it's associated with, whether there are any comments, and this is helpful if you're doing specific billing things associated with time parameters, or if you want to look as well as what someone has been working on. You can filter out that by date, you can filter it out by person, whatever parameters really you would like to filter that out by. Yeah?
Initially, we'll probably grow into this. Initially, we're not going to log the hours, but we are. Can you just show the custom workflow that you helped me create, and then where people can say it's 25% complete, 50%, 75, or 100? That's as granular as we're going to get initially.
Okay, sure. So when we take a look at your tasks over here, so say I am working on this initial market research concept development. What I would do is once I start, the default is once a task is assigned to you or is started, it takes an active status. But as you work through it, what you're going to do is you're going to apply these kinds of statuses to it. And this allows us to then take a look at where your work is. So is it 25% completed? Is it 50% completed, 75%, or is it done altogether? And this is, so these statuses are things that you can also use to pull information into either your reports or your dashboards. So you could create dashboards for all tasks that are in a project that are 25% complete, 50%, 75. And that's a great way for us to track where we're at with our tasks.
And we'll see that on the timeline view as well, right? So we're going to be asking our people who have tasks assigned to them to keep this updated, so then we can see, the team can see how is it coming.
Yes, so you'll see that the way to see that on the timeline views, you'll see each of these statuses are a different color. So if we look at, so let me change some of them now. So let me just change one or two. I'll just change the two so we can take a look at this now. So when we take a look at our tasks, the coloring changes on our timeline view. What you can also do is also just filter out over here. So rather than having tasks that are all active, I can say, I just want to see what's at 25%, or I just want to see what's at 50%.
Great, thank you.
Okay, great. So the last view that I want to highlight is our analytics view. Now, this is a great, so let me pick a different folder that has a little bit more data, so it's a little bit more colorful. So our analytics view allows us to take a look at the detail of what's happening in a project. So think of this as a health check, or a great space to give you a sense check of what's happening within your particular project. So you have all of these charts and graphs that you can take a look at. So this one gives us a day-by-day detail of, okay, on this particular day, these were the number of tasks that we needed to complete, what was completed, what's overdue, and you can track that over a particular span. And there other charts that we have over here. So this one I find is really popular, and this is essentially a summary of the number of tasks that are associated with a person, what they've completed, what's overdue, and what's on hold. The fantastic thing about these is that you can use these in conjunction with your dashboard. So if you create a dashboard for your team or a particular project, you can add any of these charts to your dashboard by clicking on the menu button there, add to dashboard, and then you can just add to whatever dashboard you're wanting to see it on. So it's a great visual kind of representation, and then you can have the task detail on your dashboard. All right, so that is all of our information. I realize that we are severely out of time. Are there any kind of burning questions that we need to go through? Peter, is there anything that you want me to whiz through?
I think you showed us more than what we needed to see, but it was perfect level of detail. I'll probably get a bunch of questions, and I'll do my best on those and reach out to you if I can. We do have one in the room in the back.
Okay.
Or two in the room. Scott, what do you got?
I have one. It just has to do with people working on multiple projects.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to look at an R&D person and how many projects they're working on, and look at the number of hours and tasks that they have, so they can filter three different projects that they're working on? Because that tends to be.
There is. We're not going to do hours yet, but tasks for sure. So can you show that? Filter on yourself, maybe, Chenge, and show how overworked you are. You can't show me because I'm not doing a lot.
Okay, so there is a way for us to take a look at across our project who is working on what. So we can either filter over here and say what are the tasks that are associated with that. We do have a dedicated view for that inside of Wrike called workload, but like Peter mentioned, there's a little bit of work that you need to be able to put in to see that as a helpful view. So I will show you quickly, and that is basically, so there you go. This is a representation of everything that I have assigned to me at this moment in time. So this is something that does take a little bit of administration to make sure that it's functioning well, but you could use it as just a kind of quick view to see what is someone working on, what are you doing. What I would suggest is if you're wanting to again see that for specific people, the timeline view is a happy kind of alternative because you can filter out by people and look across your dates to see what is someone doing currently. And obviously if there's more on here, a simple kind of gauge would be, okay, you are doing a lot at the moment.
Yeah, that would show that person across any project or any task that they have assigned, even if they assign it to themselves, it would show their workload on there. So that answers Scott's question. There was one other. Sorry, we have one more.
In regards to collaboration, is there a way that I can send out a survey wizard or whatever that I have 10 concepts, images that I want to send out to a whole group of people and get there? Okay, which one does each of you like?
So I would like, let me see if I get this right. I'd like that if he had 10 surveys, they're just like, just call them cartoon pictures of a product. I would say he creates that as he would before Wrike, and sends a link, mentions the project team and sends a link. But can you show how, we would just copy the link and paste it into Wrike?
Yes. So that would be our best bit. So in here, I would create a task, survey task. If you're wanting to do it for multiple people, I would say create a parent task over here called survey. And then I would have here, so let's say, I would include here, please review link, and then put it in there. And then what I would do in your particular instance, if you're wanting multiple people to respond to it and make sure that they've done so, I would create a subtask for each of those people and then just cut and paste the same content or duplicate the task. And then that way you know that, sorry?
Oh, I was just saying the reason we say cut and paste a link is because I want to try to avoid dumping a lot of large files into Wrike.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
We have a long way to go, and we're starting with a pilot project, so it's exciting. And I'll take the questions. I'm volunteering to be the power user, the first one, and everyone else in here can become power users. As you run projects, you'll become experts as well. So I'll take questions after the call, but is there anything else that you think we need Chengge to answer right now? Great. Chengge, is there anything else you think we missed?
No, I do want to reiterate one more thing. I know that we've gone through a tremendous amount of content in here, and it will take some getting used to. Please use the Wrike Help Center. They're really great resources for you here. So if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, please go here, play around in this space. There are also lots of videos and stuff that we've gone through as we've kind of been setting up this entire process. So if you feel like there's additional information that you need, please have a conversation with Peter. And yeah, I think that's everything from my side.
Okay, and how do we get the video of this call to share with the rest of our team that's not here?
I will create a task for you and upload it and share it with you specifically, and then you can distribute it to whoever needs it.
Great.
Okay,
awesome.
great.
Thanks for working overtime. What time is it where you are?
Oh, it's not late. It's only 8:15.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, good. So it's not bad.
Thank
okay,
you.
So thank you so much, everybody. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.